Hey kids, it's Mr. Harry again. It is that time of year, my favorite season, fall. In these autumn months, my family takes time every single weekend to visit a new pumpkin or fruit farm. Since we live in a rural area and not a big city, we find ourselves surrounded by tons of local farmers and endless pumpkin patches. My children, Justice and Paxton, have found that pumpkins aren't the only thing that they can play with at fall farms. We spend time playing in corn, sliding down slides, milking cows, petting animals, doing crafts, and much more. But in the end, the main attraction is always pumpkins. Hey, off in the distance I see the tractor coming. That hayride will certainly be able to take us to the place where pumpkins are planted as seeds and go through a life cycle to become adult pumpkins. Here we go! Paxton is holding on tight as we make our stop at a real-life pumpkin patch. Pumpkins don't grow on trees like apples do. Instead, they grow on vines, which we're going to see right now. Many pumpkin farms will let you walk right into the pumpkin patch and pick your own pumpkins. We even get a wagon for Paxton, and for the pumpkins we pick. The first thing I notice is vines tangled everywhere. My kindergarten class has been learning that the stem of a pumpkin is where it was originally attached to the vine, and we can see that here. Another thing we notice is that the pumpkin plants have enormous leaves. Just look at the size of those things. They're gigantic. We examined further and noticed that for some pumpkin plants, they haven't exactly turned into pumpkins just yet. All of those pumpkins started as seeds, grew buds, and bloomed as yellow flowers. It's the yellow flowers that will eventually grow into pumpkins, just like apple buds grow into apples. We find that there's a wide variety of pumpkin types in the patch. Some are wide and short, some are skinny and tall, and some are smashed on the ground. We think that's kind of silly. Some pumpkins we see are still green baby pumpkins. Some have partial green, and some are mostly orange. We've always liked the classic big orange pumpkins the most. Get this, Justice even finds a white pumpkin. Whoa! After picking our orange pumpkins from the patch, we measure them in wooden holes to see how much we'll have to pay the farmers. The bigger the pumpkin, the more expensive it is to purchase. We make our way back to the pumpkin farm market, where we see tons of pumpkins that farmers already picked. We also notice that many markets we have visited have other crops, fruits, and vegetables besides pumpkins, like apples, squash, gourds, and more. Hey, speaking of gourds, that was another type of plant we noticed back in the pumpkin patch. Lying on the ground, we saw various types of ornamental gourds, which got me to thinking, are gourds the same thing as pumpkins? I found out that pumpkins, gourds, and squash plants are all part of the same family called Cucurbitaceae. But while pumpkins are used for eating and decorations, plants like gourds are typically used only for decorating, not eating. A year ago, my family had purchased some gourds at a farmer's market, and at the end of the season, I threw some of them at the edge of my backyard to decompose. My hope was that they would just kind of become one with the earth. What I found at the edge of my yard at the beginning of this new school year was quite amazing, an accidental gigantic gourd plant. The gourd plant was actually starting to wrap around a smaller bush completely. I couldn't believe it. Usually people try to start a garden on purpose. Immediately I noticed a lot of similarities between our accidental gourds and our time in the pumpkin patches. I started seeing lots of yellow flowers growing in my backyard, some as buds and some fully bloomed. I also noticed enormous leaves, just like when we picked pumpkins. I mean, look at the size of those things. Many of the leaves were larger than Justice's entire head. Wow! Most obvious of all was that each blooming section was attached with vines, just like pumpkin vines. We saw baby gourds, yellow gourds, green gourds, straight gourds, and curvy gourds. No two of them were exactly the same, just like the uniqueness of pumpkins at the farm. Vine after vine, gourd after gourd, we picked and picked until we had finally harvested all of the adult gourds. And just how many do you think we found? 3, 4, 5, maybe 10? Nope, 17 adult gourds. Fantastic! Now the question is, what are we going to do with all these gourds? Until next time.